European literature. The continent of Europe, located in the northern hemisphere and mostly in the eastern hemisphere, it is the second smallest continent. Europe is divided into 50 sovereign states. Brief history about European literature. The European literature can be defined in different languages across the European countries. The similarities and differences of European literature to the world. It has many languages. Among the most important to the modern written works are those in English, Spanish, French, Dutch, Polish, German, Italian, and modern Greek. Also Czech and Russian, and works by the Scandinavian and Irish. European literature is also known as the Western literature. European literature divisions, and here are some of their characteristics. Renaissance literature. The term Renaissance, rebirth, or revival is given to the historical period in Europe that succeeded the Middle Ages. This period reawakened their intellectual and artistic inquiry, with a dominant feature of religious and philosophical phenomenon. It was the revival of ancient Greece and Rome. 20th century literature features an interest in the unconscious and the irrational was reflected in their work and that of others of about this time. This period marked an increasing sense of crisis, urgency, and doubt. Some famous writers and their works during this period: Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes, Gertrude Stein, Three Lives, Jack London, Call of the Wild. Here are also some famous writers in European literature: William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1660s, Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, his sonnets, Voltaire, 1694 to 778, Candide, Jacob and William Grimm, 1785 to 1863. Jacob and William are remembered today for their collection of folktales which helped start study of folklore. Victor Hugo, 1802 to 1885, Les Miserables. The significance of the European literature to its community and to the world. It signifies their daily lives or the history of their country. Well, it does not only revolve to them but also the whole world can relate to it. Some of their literary pieces are made to showcase their country, history, especially for those love stories like Romeo and Juliet, which is enjoyed by many. This 21st century is associated with the modern technology, making their literary pieces come to life by making it as a movie or series. Can be accessed through different modern applications in our gadgets.
Philippine literature. Philippine is a country rich in diversity and language heritage. Even before Spanish colonialization, its literature had evolved tremendously. Some of the notable literatures are a general reflection of the influence exerted by Spaniards during the colonialization of Philippines. From our subject, 21st century literature, the early forms of Philippine literature are myths, legends, folktales, and fables. Philippine literature evolved in relation to our historical experience. Here are some notable writers and their works of Philippine literature. Noli Me Tangere by Dr. Jose Rizal, Florante at Laura by Francisco Balagtas, Mga Ibong Mandaragit by Amado V. Hernandez, The Woman Who Had Two Novels by Nick Joaquin, Dekada 60 by Luwalhati Bautista, Aba, Nakakabasa na pala ako by Bob Ong. The significance of our country or the Philippine literature to our community and to the world is that some of our literary pieces themes that happens in real life. Some literary pieces is like a reflection of the daily lives of the Filipinos, even though some are fictional or non-fictional. It has the issues and problems in the history of our country during colonization for us to learn something from it's a lesson that we will bring until we grow old. That can also improve and widen our knowledge about our history, the background of our country. However, some are also enjoyable where the youth can relate about love and educational, which is rampant until to the modern world or 21st century literature. modernized way of telling stories, for example, movies, poems, Twitter serie, text serie, and especially Wattpad, where there are a lot of types of modern literature.
Similarities of the European literature and Philippine literature in themes and approach are: first is religion. In terms of religion, European and Philippine literature had some literary pieces that tells a story about religion, mostly Christianity. As we were colonized by Spain for 333 years, and we adopted their religion and some of their culture. The differences are it does not only in our literature, Philippine literature, it does not only revolve in Christianity, it also revolves in other type of religion. Next is myth. The reason why they are similar in this type of theme, the myth, the Philippines also had myths, a story of gods or deities, or what we know here, Anito or and Diwata, mythical creatures and fictional heroes that came from our ancestors, and same goes for the European literature. Its myths are also about gods and goddesses like Athena, Zeus, Hades, and Persephone, and heroes. The only difference is that European literature mythology is some more likely to be in a hero type of story. Next is love for the country, or also known as patriotism. The reason for this literature, um, we had so they ha- both literature had many literary pieces about love for the country, especially during colonization times. And that same goes for also the European literature. Some literary pieces about their love for the country, or in short, patriotism. Next is war. Both had literary pieces that it is about war, especially for our country that experienced main conflicts in our country, Philippine literature, that experienced many conflicts in life during the war. And for example, in our country, World War II, and for them is like the war, World War One, or like that. And for their differences in themes, European themes is like more in empires. Is different in Philippine literature for the reason that in the theme empire is often used in our literary pieces, Philippine literature. It is often used in Philippine literature. Our literary pieces are more on politics, freedom, and nationalism. And some similarities about literary approaches are the two are similar in historical approach. Both has a literary pieces that focuses on the historical background of the country or in the periods or time. And next is sociological criticism. Both European and Philippine literature is similar for this approach for the reason that some of their and our literary pieces emphasizes or about economic and political issues. Next is biographical criticism. It's also the most well-known approach for both European and Philippine literature. It is written based on a true story and based in the writer or the author's biography life of what his or her experienced during his times. The current status of the Philippine literature, according to Remoto, Philippine writing in the new century has taken a new turn. The works are seen as sensitive to gender, alludes to technology, show culture as plural rather than singular. The current status of the Philippine literature in the 21st century is modernized. It is associated by the modern technology. Literary pieces can now be viewed and watched in internet, especially in social medias. Like for example, in modern literary pieces can now be read and watched in Wattpad, Twitter series, Netflix and YouTube and Facebook. While the current status of European literature is doing great and enjoyed by many. And this is especially in movies and novels. One of the most well-known British writers is J.K. Rowling. With his successful, best-selling, and loved by many, especially me, Harry Potter, a novel or a movie series that is enjoyed, really a fantasy with magic wands or fictional story, fictional novel. Next is Peter Morgan, also a British author who made the famous Netflix series The Crown, a historical drama about Queen Elizabeth, that revolves about what happens in the royal families, but this is only fictional. Their themes are about love and war, fictional, fantasy, history, and especially about technology.